Knives Out was written and directed by Rian Johnson, who directed Looper and Star Wars The Force Awakens. Is a whodunit dark comedy with an all-star cast, and it is fucking phenomenal. This was a great goddamn movie. I absolutely love this. The cast was great. Toni Collette, Jamie Lee Curtis, Daniel Craig, Christopher Plummer, Don Johnson, Michael Shannon, the kid from It, the kid with the stutter from It. You'll remember him. He was great. And newcomer Anna de Armas, she was also great. And she had been in other stuff before, but I hadn't seen much of anything she was in, and she was a revelation. Chris Evans was also fantastic. If you take a look at the cast of this movie, man, Rian Johnson assembled a hell of a cast. But the thing is, you can assemble the best cast. You can have you can do a who done it and everything. But if you don't have good writing, if you don't have a good way of doing it, then you're not going to make this work. Well, with this plot, it's both complicated and simple at the same time. If you follow the steps, it's nice and detailed, but it's easy to figure out. You just have to follow it. You have Christopher Plummer, who plays Harlan. He's a very rich author who has built his empire from the ground up and has a lot of rich kids and rich extended family members that are of all, some are being funded by him and some are being taken care of by him. And you have Anna de Armas, who was his nurse, that is a character that factors into this as things go on more and more as the movie develops. Spoilers will come up here in a little bit, and I'll wave my hands and everything. But with this movie, I was very excited to see it because I'm like, okay, comedy is subjective, and sometimes I found some comedies funny, and sometimes I've been like, whatever, it is what it is. With this, every goddamn note was great. Everybody played their roles well. Jamie Lee Curtis was fantastic in this. Like, everybody really was goddamn good. Now, there were some characters that kind of receded back and then would bubble back up when they were needed to develop a plot point. But Daniel Craig was also great. Comedy, Southern accent aside, he was really good in this. And Daniel Craig has been absolutely great in a lot of movies that he's been in. I mean, he was even great in that movie Dreamhouse, which I absolutely hated. But with this movie, as things developed and as this plot started to not unravel in a bad way, but it's like peeling layers of an onion. You're like, okay, everything that happened actually makes sense. The way it's like, okay, this character may have been at fault or thought they were at fault, but they actually weren't. Or this character had the proper motivation, but actually it turns out it's this character that maybe was the reason why Harlan's character committed suicide. And wait, what's going to happen with all his money and all this stuff? Well, that development comes up a little bit later, and then that sends everything into a goddamn tailspin with the family. But with this, it was just really, really impressive how everything was interwoven and everybody played their characters well, and plot points were all finalized. And everything with this movie made sense. Everybody had the reasons behind their motivations, even if they were dark, even if you understood it, you could kind of see where they were coming from with how, dealing with the death of, their father or their grandfather in the case of some of the grandkids. And Chris Evans was great in this. He was great as a smartass, which I'm sure was so hard for him to play. Yeah, that was a bit of a smartass comment, but I really want to focus on Anna de Armas. She was phenomenal. She's got a bright goddamn future. She played a very centered role, but a very well-rounded role of being pretty much the protagonist here. She was very, very fleshed out. Daniel Craig was great in this. The cast, really, I can't complain about this one bit. As things get revealed and as the plot gets a little more detailed, you figure out that it's actually who you probably suspected originally would be the killer, who would be the person behind why things happened the way they did. So it's again, really hard to get into it without spoilers. But this movie is funny. It was well acted, very well acted, very well shot, very well done. Maybe the only complaint I had is it didn't need to be 2 hours and like 15 minutes. However, it didn't drag. It didn't drag at all. That's my only issue with some comedies, is some comedies don't need to be that long. However, this was very, very well done, and anything, like as it told in flashbacks, you got to find out more and more stuff, and you got to figure out why characters were the way they were and why they would want in on an inheritance because they feel like they earned it or whatever. It just really was well-rounded and well done. So now I'm going to get into spoilers here in a little bit. So I'm at 5 minutes. So if you're watching after this, sorry, 3, 2, 1, and go. So spoiler zone right here. I don't have fancy graphics, but so Harlan ends up he ends up talking to his nurse. They end up playing a game, and they're talking after the party, and we get told in flashbacks a little bit later what happens. But he's playing a game with her. Well, because she's his nurse, she's giving him medications because he has ailments because he's 85 years old, and it turns out there's this medication mix-up. But maybe somebody messed with her bag because she's pretty damn good about making sure that the medicines for him are taken care of. So she thinks she accidentally gave him too much of morphine instead of his proper medication. So holy crap, she gave him too much morphine. He's going to die. And he ends up going over this with her of like, here's how you're going to get away with this because you didn't mean to do this. As somebody is out to get me. This is how we're going to do it. He tells this whole story about how she's going to cover up this stuff and how she's going to get away with this because he knows that she is a good person and that she is not a bad person at all and she did not mean to do this. And it was a way because you find out later why in the world he thought this of her and he helped her get away, because if she ended up being convicted of this crime, she's the daughter of an immigrant. And that's another discussion that comes up here later in the movie between the family, where they get into a discussion about undocumented immigrants and immigrants in general and everything. And it's a bit of an uncomfortable scene given society right now, but it was also timely. Oh, and the kid with the stutter from It plays, a very Trump, pro-Trump kid. Without necessarily saying that, he's very influenced by the fact that the white race is superior. Yeah, it was a little uncomfortable, actually, and I'm sure it was uncomfortable for him. However, as things go on, you find out that, okay, Toni Collette married into the family. She's got a daughter that has had her college funded by Harlan, but she's been double dipping on the money. So then that gets revealed that maybe, she had the proper motive. Daniel Craig continues to find out that, like, wait, what's going on with this? Wait, why wasn't Chris Evans's character Ransom there? And actually, Ransom's his middle name. No, really, that's his middle name. Why wasn't he at the funeral? Why wasn't he, why wasn't he there? But then he was at the reading of the will. And later at the reading of the will, it turns out that Harlan left everything to the nurse, Marta. And the reason he did that is because he trusted her, basically. He trusted her. He didn't trust any member of the family, because even the ones that did earn their way and build their own empires and everything, were pretty goddamn shit people. But he felt Marta was a good person with a good heart that could help her family, that could help out others, that would take care of the money. He didn't feel any of his other family members would take care of the family. And also there's a lady that plays the mother, actually Christopher Plummer's mother. Well, I mean, not his actual mother, but plays his mother. And since he's supposed to be 85, she's got to at least be 105, 110. And she's, just in the role a little bit, or in the movie a little bit, but she plays a pretty funny role. A lot of dark comedy, a lot of really good stuff in this. And it turns out that, of course, even though Marta blames herself because of all this, what happened? Well, it was Chris Evans, because he was cut out of the will. So he decided to get back and mix up the medications and everything and find a way to kill his grandfather. And Marta had been blaming herself, thinking that she mixed up the medications. It turns out that he would have been perfectly fine, that they could have called an ambulance, and that she gave him the right medication because she recognized the color of these medicines. And even though it seemed like Ransom wanted to help out Marta, nope, didn't. He just wanted to find a way to blackmail her and this kind of stuff. And really with the movie, it's just a movie that you absolutely have to go see and enjoy and just appreciate. It's a hard movie to review because unless you watch it, you won't necessarily understand. And I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was absolutely phenomenal. The comedy was great. The telltale signs of like who was really in on it and who wasn't, and the fact that this family that had felt, was, whether they said it or not, was waiting for their grandfather to die. They, were left with nothing except, their own fortunes. They were left without the $60 million in assets and money and the house and the book empire that Harlan had. It was all left to Marta because he trusted her. And she was actually somebody with a good heart, even though she felt that she did this and she didn't mean to. She didn't mean to cause his death. It turns out she didn't. And he did end up committing suicide rather than suffer all that, rather than suffer like a morphine overdose and everything. Or maybe he did it as a way to save her. You never quite know, but you get a pretty good idea by the end. Does it hint at the sequel? Sort of. I don't know if they'll do one. I don't know if they should do one because I don't know if they're going to capture this kind of magic. But I really enjoyed this. Jamie Lee Curtis was absolutely great in it, as you would expect, and everybody played their roles well. And you get told in the flashbacks that happen, like, where you figure out, what these characters were saying to Harlan, like, what these family members were saying at this party, and just everything was really well done and a lot of great comedy. I really enjoyed this one. I'm going to give it an A. I've given out a few A's in the past month, but I really enjoyed this. So A, if I forget to put a poll up there, please let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritland. I'll see you soon.